Fiona and David Maisel there from Marvel. How exciting. And what a great story. What a wonderful story that was. We're now going to move on to looking at infrastructure for the urban century. And when we think about infrastructure, it has expanded over the years to include so much. We once looked at this as a construction topic, I think, but really we have to examine infrastructure now from a much more holistic point of view and really look at what is it all about in terms of the urban century. We look at the growth of the cities, we look at movement from rural areas, indeed around the world, into the cities. But some of the fascinating work that is going on, particularly in Saudi Arabia, I think it is, they're growing communities and new communities. This is what's so exciting about it. These are new communities that have never been built before, and the appetite to see, new life grow around these communities. So building, yes, the infrastructure, building the communities, building the technology that's going to help move them, and indeed just the very great skill, I think, and the determination that goes behind creating new cities. So it's a very dynamic time in the industry. And my dear panel is just standing in the wings here, ready to go. Let's meet our panel for the infrastructure for the urban century. They're joining us here. And we're delighted to have with us too our dear moderator, my dear colleague and friend, co-founder and CEO, Saba Communications Consultant. Please give a warm welcome to Siva Audi, and she will conduct this panel.
Thank you very much, Etna. I felt that we might need to fly in like superheroes after this presentation from Marvel. Thank you very much, dear panelists, for joining me, and thank you all for coming in today. So we are talking about future cities, and it seems that we are living through the most condensed period for urbanization in human history. By 2050, roughly 2/3 of the world's population is going to be living in cities. And there's an estimate by the United Nations that said that $90 trillion will be spent on infrastructure between the years 2015 and 2030, which is a humongous number. How and where and what are we building? In the past, roads used to be the foundation of cities. They were the infrastructure that we would build. Today, things have changed. Today, we're talking about data, we're talking about 5G, we're talking about fiber, and we are talking about cloud and data storage. These are the new foundations for the upcoming century. Now, knowing these demands are the demands of the future, how are we building it? I'd like to start with you, Rayan, and ask you about what you're doing in NEOM. You have the idea that the most challenging thing for cities nowadays is retrofitting the future into the past. But you have the luxury of building on a blank canvas, and you're not building a development or a small city, you're building an area which is twice the size of my home country, 2.5 times the size of my home country, the size of Brussels, effectively. What does starting from first principles give you? What does it give those cities that no Rome and no London can get?
Thank you very much, and would like to thank FII for inviting us into this panel, and grateful to be among my colleagues and friends on the stage. Starting a city from scratch, as you said, with a blank canvas has its challenges, but it also has its advantages and opportunities. What does that mean to NEOM? It means to NEOM our ability to build an energy infrastructure with technology where other people left off. So using the latest technology that is much more cost effective, much more sustainable as well. Being able to build both the piping for energy and water for a master plan that will live for another 100 years, not being anchored to any existing infrastructure that can become an impediment than it is an enabler. What it also means is that building a digital infrastructure that helps develop what NEOM would look like, or any future city would look like going forward, whether it's the 600 kilometer of fiber that we've put on the ground, or connecting through the subsea cables, or actually even deciding the location of that network that is aligned with a master plan that is there to live for 100 years. So the way we view it is infrastructure in the context of NEOM is a significant enabler, is a significant advantage, competitive advantage, and not a constraint as it may have been in other existing cities.
Sabah, at Roshan, as you are building and as you are developing also sometimes from scratch and sometimes retrofitting into existing developments, what, again, your philosophy is that cities are not single asset investments, they need to be integrated. So how do you prioritize and where do you prioritize when building those cities, and how does that change your approach to putting down the infrastructure for those cities?
Thank you. Well, thank you very much for having me on the panel. It's actually a real honor to be discussing infrastructure in Rome, where 2,000 years plus ago, they were laying probably what must have been at the time extremely revolutionary infrastructure that has been modified, adapted over 2 millennia, and we're still using now and we're seeing. And so having this discussion in this location is actually incredible. Going back to your question, as Roshan is the leading real estate developer in the kingdom, we look at what the customer needs are, and we work back from that, because fulfilling the customer needs, not just today, but also doing a huge amount of insight work with focus groups and customer and existing buyers and potential buyers, we're trying to look at how do we want, or how does our customer want to live today, tomorrow, and over the next 100 years, and trying to make sure that we provide the right level of infrastructure. Now, we can break it down into 5 heavily interconnected aspects of infrastructure. We have mobility infrastructure, which is both your primary roads, secondary roads, connections, and transportation within the communities, and that's changing as the technology is changing. So a road isn't a road anymore. You know, the way we think about a road today is going to be very different from how we're going to think about a road in 3 or 5 years' time, where, you know, autonomous vehicles are coming into play, much more focus on micro-mobility solutions and the like. So we need to really re-look at even the most basic concepts of what something like a road is. The second one is utility infrastructure. You know, what's our plans to provide utility infrastructure? How do we make sure that the utility infrastructure we're providing is fit for purpose as we go forward?
Yep.
Third one is communication infrastructure, which is maybe 30 years ago, it was a copper telephone wire leading up to people's homes. Now everything is interconnected with the you know, Internet of Things, and the way all aspects of the communities are managed. And what we've tried to do is take a leading role in making sure that our community activations is all done through technology with apps. So our customers, we've developed apps where the customers literally manage every aspect of their community living through apps.
Right.
So communications is important. Then social infrastructure is equally important, which is schools, mosques, all the other community facilities. And lastly, we bring it all together with livability and public realm.
To ensure that these cities are well connected and well integrated. Mike, let me ask you, at Murabba, your solution to mobility is going vertical. So the smart cities, the Amsterdams of the world, the Souls, are now going vertical. They don't no longer think about how they're going to move cars on roads. They're thinking about limiting that movement. Your answer to that is verticality, but also creating density in a very small space has its problems. So again, how do you balance?
So thank you, and again, thank you very much for allowing me to participate this afternoon. We're very delighted to be here, both myself and Imran, and thank you to FII. I don't want to repeat what clearly Rayan and Sabah have already said, which has nailed many of the things, but we have the benefit at Numaraba of actually starting at the end and saying, what does the city need to look and feel like, and what do we want people to experience? And ultimately, we want people to experience a frictionless experience when they are living, working, and playing within Numaraba, but also the mobility and the access to the new downtown needs to be seamless as well. The worst thing of all would be that the expressways and the interchanges of today became completely clogged up by the future 300,000 residents of tomorrow. So it's really important we think at the end first. And I think building upon Sabah's point, you know, we believe truly in quality of life. So therefore, half of the real estate has been given to green space and mobility. Now, as you rightly said, we're not constrained by the architecture of today because, like Rayan, we have a blank canvas, but we have to think very hard to make sure that not only do we create a frictionless experience, but we allow space for things that we don't know about today, but things that we know will come, because we can all talk about tech, AI, and whatever, but ultimately it runs on pipes, wires, servers, racks, which require cooling and ultimately power.
I'm getting images of being inside a closed space. I mean, going vertical and being dense. Can you be dense without being claustrophobic?
That's right, yes.
You can.
Yes, and I think it comes down to what you're trying to achieve. So for us, livability is really important. So therefore, if you do benchmarks around the world, we know what cities are potentially overpopulated and what cities feel half empty. And Numaraba is positioned at about 24,000 people per square kilometre. Two things that are important about that. One is it's 4x Riyadh today. So Riyadh, which is a low density, is about 6,000 people per square kilometre. So we're going to create that energy and buzz that actually well-travelled Saudis and visitors know and feel. Above and beyond that, if we look at reference points, New York and downtown Manhattan is 25,000 people per square kilometre. Paris is about 23, London is 24. So we think we've got that balance right. We don't want to be overpopulated, but we want people to be there feeling vibrant, energized, because Saudis already are. And
Yes.
therefore, when
Yes.
they have the benefit of a downtown in their own backyard, we truly feel that we've got the balance
Yes.
right.
I'd like to turn to Muammar, and of course, at DR, you are developing in one of the oldest cities in Saudi Arabia, and in the region, you're developing in Mecca, which doesn't come without its own issues. How do you design in one of the oldest cities for modern comfort?
Thank you, Sabah. It's a pleasure to be here. Actually, we are developing in different cities, but developing in Mecca for me is very special and deeply rewarding. The first principle when you work at Mecca is to respect the culture, the identity of the city, the heritage. So we consider that in the design of the building. You know, when you get closer to the center of Mecca, where the Holy Mosque is, the identity or the design of the building going to more traditional. And if you go further, it's a less traditional. While inside the building, we consider that the spirit of the design, the identity of the city, even we deal with some local artists to have the touch of Mecca identity within the artwork and the painting inside the building. If we talk about the design in general, actually, I believe the design is the foundation for any successful development. So, and the design is not only about the human scale or the comfort, it's about the human experience, the feeling. So nowadays, the new development, it's a place where the people can live, work, and play.
Yes.
While we need to think about the units and the residential unit itself. Now the residential unit, because the lifestyle is changing, and even after the pandemic, many people, they start work remotely, studying online. Many things is changing. So we need maybe spaces inside the unit or within the residential building to maybe could be the future requirement for any student or someone to applying for work to have this space. Also about the kitchen, whether we need the kitchen, for example, or not, because now the delivery, whether for foods or shopping online, it's very important. We need to study logistic, how to deliver the items quickly, safely, and these things, it will has a major change in the development, and we should start from the residential unit itself.
So the design should meet the customer expectation and the kind of life they see for themselves in that place.
Exactly.
Pietro, let me go to you, all the way over to you, and ask you. You're not new to developing. You're one of the largest contractors in the world. You've been developing and working in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for the last 60 years, umpteen number of projects. Can you walk me through how Saudi Arabia has changed when building or laying down infrastructure for their developments?
Well, the first thing that comes to your eyes when you see Riyadh is change. Let's say if any one of you have been in Riyadh in the last 15 years, could appreciate the speed of what has been a city before to change into the city that it is now. We're talking about vertical. We were the one to make the Kingdom Tower, and from the Kingdom Tower, you were seeing from your room in the Kingdom Tower, you look at the city, and it was a totally different city on what is now. So we are in front of clients and fund managers and everybody who want to invest for the future. But like any general, without army and without weapons, cannot do and win any battle. All these people that have a lot of money cannot do an investment properly if there is not someone to build for them. So I think that just to give you numbers of us in order to understand what we do, our name is We Build. So I would not go further into explain what we do. But we work in 52 countries, 120 years of history, around 70 billion of dollars of contract under execution, 15.5 billion of revenues per year, 95,000 people around the world. And what this means? It means a lot of experience, a lot of problems, a lot of experience. But we are the one to make things happen in Europe, in Saudi. We are in Saudi since the 50s, so quite a long time. And what I was saying to you before is that there are only two things that look at long term: there are kingdoms and families. In families, you look at your kids and you think about the future. In kingdoms, you think about the next king and what will you leave to that guy to make for the future of the country. As such, we are a very strange animal because we are a listed company. The state is partly inside our shareholders, but it's also a family-owned company. So it's listed, but with all the things. So I think that this is the best situation in which you have result to give to your shareholders, a year by year constantly, but also reputation, which is the essential asset of a family, and looking for that in the future. This means very long-term relationship with people, very long-term relationship with client. We work mostly for government, so it's for us it's not a enormous number of clients. We have a limited number of clients, but we do a lot of things with them. 170 projects underway now. So let's say that for us, when we think at development in Saudis and in Europe, we see two different worlds. One which was capable, like Saudi, to take the right choice, have a vision, and make it deliver to the people in time in which the people can appreciate the difference. I imagine the kids in Riyadh, the one who had 15 years old, remembers how it was Riyadh before.
Right.
And he now lives a different city. The metro line we built in Riyadh changed the transportation, which is one of the essence of Riyadh. Whoever has lived a little bit in Riyadh understand the only problem Riyadh has is traffic.
Right.
So it is important to do things like that. In Europe, to make the same infrastructure, it takes 25 years.
Right.
So it is outside the life cycle of a generation when you think that. Imagine the cycle infrastructure in Europe is so difficult because there is so many things. And in Riyadh, in the kingdom, it takes, let's say, a sufficient time to appreciate the difficulties, to understand what's going on. But then there is a decision. So I think this is the most important thing, having a vision and the capability and competence to have the people on board to realize it.
And the ability to look forward and to be able to anticipate. And the things that we are solving for today, we could not have imagined when we had put down the infrastructure that we are living with today. I want to talk very quickly a little about financing. Rayan, going to you, we're talking about massive numbers. If we talk about PPP is a bit extractive. If we talk about the multilaterals, they're slow and they put a lot of conditions. What's the best model to finance these mega projects?
I think consistent with what His Excellency mentioned yesterday around the new strategy of the PIF. And he mentioned how the PIF in its original strategy was looking to how to get investments into the world, and now it's focusing on how to attract investments into the kingdom. NEOM is a core pillar of that. We have many opportunities where NEOM provides the enabling infrastructure, energy, water, digital connectivity incentives for third-party capital to come in and make the investments. NEOM Green Hydrogen project is one great example where it's a $9 billion project with partners with Air Products and Aqua Power. Had $6.2 billion of debt financing. The remaining is financed by equity, but collectively as shareholders identified NEOM as a very attractive place to build such a large-scale industrial complex. The same applies with many other opportunities coming up right now, particularly in the renewable sector, as well as obviously the renewable sector is anchored by NEOM Green Hydrogen, as well as AI data centers, where the availability of land, energy, digital connectivity, and water infrastructure that exists today is providing an attractive proposition. So the model going forward is in significant investment done by NEOM directly in the infrastructure, enabling third-party capital to come in
Right.
in very specific industries that have the advantage of NEOM.
Right. Sabah, please come in on this for me. Traditionally, infrastructure is the remit or responsibility of government. Is there a role for government here? Is it the developers that should be taking on the cost of this infrastructure being put down?
Thank you. So if you look at when you provide infrastructure, it does two things. It enables the land that you've provided infrastructure to be activated. So you create communities, business parks, activity. But I think equally importantly, it creates significant economic activity. And that economic activity leads to GDP creation. And the other aspect is that infrastructure is an extremely long-term play. You know, for the recovery of the cost of that infrastructure, it's decades and sometimes multi-generational. So the role of governments and the role of the base economy is extremely important in supporting the provision of infrastructure. Now, that's not to say that the private sector and the developers should just sit back and expect the governments to do everything. I think there is a middle ground where the developer provides a certain amount of infrastructure that supports their development, supported by the government that provides the wider infrastructure network that supports the wider activity and allows the developers to focus on what they can do and what they need to do to activate their developments. The provision of that then becomes, does the developer pay for it for himself, or as Rayan was mentioning, do you work with the private sector, both domestic and regional, to bring in third-party funding, PPP models and the like, where you can actually outsource the provision of that against a secure and predictable return.
Mike, I saw you nodding your head, but I'd like to move you to another subject, which is the use of AI. And where is AI finding a seat in the way that you are planning for this future city?
Thank you. Building upon what we've already heard, we have the similar belief, the understanding with regard to the private sector playing a key part. And what we seek ultimately is private sector to bring capability, capacity, to participate, and also to bring capital as well. So that applies across all aspects of infrastructure, including AI. At Numaraba, we have really AI in two domains. In particular, we have AI inside the cube, and we have AI everywhere else. And if I talk about the AI everywhere else in particular, insofar as it relates to infrastructure, we have a need for 1.8 gigawatts of power, 110,000 cubic meters of potable water every day, and also all of the treatment of the sewage and the like. But also it is a smart city. So therefore we need to have AI acting in the background to ensure that that seamless experience I mentioned earlier is there for everyone. So in real terms, what does that mean? It means sensors everywhere, but not highly visible front of house, but not sensors to be watching people, but sensors to be ensuring that things like refuse collection is happening, and it just happens seamlessly at the right time of day so as not to spoil the experience and the enjoyment. And ultimately, all of that is brought back into effectively a central control. And that central control is constantly monitoring and iterating depending upon the circumstances. So it could be, for example, the number of decibels in a community at a certain time of the night exceeds, and therefore that will then interact, it will alert us, and we can then take the appropriate measures to actually re-establish control. But ultimately, it sits in everything we do, but we need to be really clear that humans also ultimately can control the information and the data that is driven out of AI.
100%. Mohammed, let me ask you about, stay with the theme of AI. I heard you say that you feel Saudi developers or developers in Saudi are quite lucky because as you are developing new cities now, AI is coming into and coming into itself, let me say.
Yes.
So tell me more.
Yeah, it's very clear there's a significant transformation in the market in Saudi. So we are fortunate that it's taking place where AI, new technologies, advanced data is taking place. So it's a very good chance to apply new inventions to the market, to the industry, not only in Saudi Arabia, but the whole world because of the timing of using this. Leonardo da Vinci said, um, wisdom is the daughter of experience. So we built on the experience nowadays. The experiences are available, the mistakes are clear, so we can use all this data to invent a new way of development.
Pietro, let me ask you a last question here. Aside from capital, what else do we need to bring in for developers to be working in Saudi Arabia? What's the opportunity?
Well, one thing that comes to my mind now is the fragility of the Gulf system of essential issues, water, energy. You have seen during this turmoil later that a possible attack to one of these desalination plants could have done an enormous enormous damage. So one thing I would suggest now is to invest in redundancy and in resilience, because this is very important to give to the investors the idea and also, let's say, the essence of what is safety. A lot of investors look for safety as the first issue. So this is very important to me that Saudis keep this lesson that happened in very recently to say, okay, we must be resilient to any possible attack from outside. This is one thing very important. The second thing is how to attract and keep the best talent as it is now. So this is very important because before the Gulf was perceived as something in a place to go. Everywhere was the same. You go in Dubai, you go in Abu Dhabi, you go in Qatar, you go in Oman, or you go in Saudi Arabia was the same for, let's say, for a normal person and investor. I think that the first choice is it is not the same. It is different. And Saudi has all the characteristics to be felt as the different big fish in the ocean. It's totally different country, totally different kingdom. This is one thing. How to attract these people, the competence, like the people like us, for instance, to stay there. It is to create for the future a framework in which these good and large companies can survive, let's say, and keep their action in continuity for developing the plan of the vision and of His Royal Highness. I think this is the most important thing, to invest into a framework in which is sound under the legal point of view. The settlement of issues is something that everybody understands as an international standard. The contract standard should be kept as much as possible as the international FIDIC standard. I think those issues, together with the safety measure that the government will take to shed the population for any possible event, will make the condition for the development of this fantastic plan.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. Finally, I'd just like to ask you all the same question, if you would each think about it from the angle of your own development. By 2040, if you were to be asked, what would you consider to be the proof of success that your development has become an important node in the global urban economy? Would that be occupancy? Would that be capital flows, industrial output? Rayan, I start with you.
I think when you think of NEOM, it's much more of a economic development region than it is a real estate project. So looking forward to 2040, success will be measured by not only having a strong industrial base, which is what we're focusing on today, but also expanding into livability, population, and GDP contribution to the rest of the kingdom, which is the vision that was set initially for NEOM.
And Mike?
For me, the three pillars of the vision sit at the heart of that. So in terms of quality of life, vibrant society, and a thriving economy. And if we measure that in terms of behavior and the like, people will be talking positively about the experience of living, working, playing at Numaraba. And for those tens of millions of visitors coming to the Cube, they would actually be returning and booking their tickets to come back.
Okay. Sabah? And Roshan?
Thank you. So for us, fundamental pillars, quality of life, enabling a strong and vibrant private sector to create a real estate development sector that is active and self-sustaining within the kingdom, and happy customers who are proud to live in Roshan communities.
We need to count the happy customers by 2040. And Muammar, what would be your measure?
Actually, yeah, the real estate, you know, it's development, it's waves from a country to country to region, from region to region. I think in Saudi Arabia, the wave just started. So by 2040, we will achieve a lot of things.
I think the organizers may have forgotten about us, so I'll take this opportunity and just ask very quickly for the investors in the audience, give them one compelling opportunity today
Well,
in Saudi.
it's a very difficult question. There's a lot of opportunities, but if you invest in some development companies that working in different sectors, they have a diversity in whether waterfront or downtown or whatever. And especially what we are doing in Mecca and Medina, there'll be a game changer.
Yep, especially that the laws have changed now, allowing
Yes,
ownership.
exactly.
Sabah, what's the most compelling investment opportunity?
Well, I think for us, for Roshan right now, particularly for investors who are interested in infrastructure and vertical development, our Marafi project in Jeddah, which is we're creating an 11-kilometer long canal that is going to completely transform the north of Jeddah, that's going to be anchored on this waterway that will be both an entertainment as well as a transportation mechanism and a lifestyle activator.
And Mike?
For investors, we have three verticals. One is classic real estate, which can be anything from land sales to joint ventures or anything in between. The reason why I believe that's attractive is because we're not special, but we are different insofar as we have this density and this verticality, which in simple terms means that the return on investment both ways should be exponentially attractive on the basis of the fact that for 7 million square meters of land, there is the opportunity to develop 20 million square meters of real estate.
Rayan?
I think there's one maybe hidden asset in NEOM that people don't talk about as much, which is the port. We've seen a rejuvenation of the whole Red Sea coast given the recent events, and NEOM has been a great beneficiary of that activity, whether it is Ma'aden exporting through NEOM port for the first time, or importing foods and other services, not only to the NEOM, but also to the rest of the Gulf. This has been a top performing asset, and we look forward to really monetizing it in a commercial opportunity.
Inshallah, best of luck. Pietro, last words of wisdom. 2 words. 3.
2 words. I would say that thank you that we are in Italy, you're in Rome. I think that we have a sufficient heritage to say that we are the son of the son of the son of the son of Michelangelo and of Raffaello, and that also Michelangelo and Raffaello had to have a very good client to make their art. So we have in front of us fantastic investors that are also fantastic clients. So God bless you. That's it.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you all for attending today.
Siba, thank you so much. And to all of our great panel there, Arabian DR, Russian Group, Numaraba, NEOM, thank you all, gentlemen. And We Build, of course, lots of work going on. Lovely to see you all here. And thank you all and the great work that has been going on there. You must check out some of the work that, the beautiful designs that are on the website that are out there, and really quite spectacular operations been built all over Saudi Arabia, these new cities that are coming up, and many of them already starters. So the excitement that's there, and building the communities and putting the technology together and building the infrastructure, and of course working with the cities, with Riyadh, with Jeddah, with all of the cities in terms of building the transportation and all of that. It's a very active time there, nonstop. It's a very busy time. And for investors, it's definitely a great time to be there, because this is, in many ways, just the start. It's we've only seen some of these open up, but this will continue to move very, very quickly here. So it's very exciting.